Joining us now, Kelly Ayotte, a Republican senator from New Hampshire who is part of those meetings today and whose soundbite you just heard. Senator, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Megyn.
All right, so explain that for us, if you would. Why are you more troubled today than you were before you met with Ambassador Rice?
Well, first of all, I appreciated that we had the meeting today, but I will say that up front, the acting director of the CIA and Ambassador Rice said that the story about the video and the protests was wrong. In fact, the acting director of the CIA said by the 22nd of September they had absolutely confirmed that that was wrong. And so I think the first issue is, having gone on every major news network and represented that story that she now admits is wrong, why didn't she come forward sooner to say that, first of all? In addition to that, what also troubled me was that we have heard that she relied on the unclassified talking points in terms of what she said on each of the Sunday shows. But what was important to understand is that in her capacity as the UN ambassador, she also reviewed the daily intelligence briefings. We know from already reported information that the classified talking points said clearly that Al-Qaeda, individuals associated with Al-Qaeda or with ties to Al-Qaeda were involved in the attacks. That was then omitted from the unclassified talking points, but she had reviewed the classified talking points. And nevertheless, when you look at what she said on CBS Face the Nation, also on Meet the Press, not only was that piece omitted, but also she said that Al-Qaeda was decimated in both of those interviews. So that, of course, was a misleading impression to the American people about what happened at the consulate. Obviously, the American people would have taken a very different impression had the information about individuals with ties to Al-Qaeda been involved in the attack been presented from the beginning.
What was her explanation for that?
I was unsatisfied with the explanation. Basically, as I understand it, the explanation is that that was being withheld. The Al-Qaeda involvement was, that point of the talking points was being withheld for classified reasons. But I also explored, didn't you question that? Because that left, if you were to omit that portion of the talking points, it leaves a very different impression to the American people. And frankly, I didn't get a satisfactory answer to that. Or an explanation that I felt really warranted. And think about, obviously she has a very important position in the United Nations. She made it very clear that she was not just parroting the talking points, but she had obviously done her own homework, and part of her responsibilities is to receive the daily intelligence briefing that includes the classified information.
Right, so she knew more. She knew more than she was telling us. And I see your point. It's not that she just withheld the information about Al-Qaeda. She made statements that seemed to suggest Al-Qaeda was decimated, and yet she had information in hand that suggested they were behind this attack. I want to ask you specifically. She of course, in the written statement she provided today to the public, which I want to tell our viewers we have, and then in her meetings with you as well, came out and did say the talking points provided by the intelligence community were incorrect in a key respect. There was no protest or demonstration in Benghazi. Okay, so she's admitting now that what she said was, but she's blaming it on the intelligence community. Did she tell you specifically who told her to go on the Sunday talk shows, and who specifically gave her this information?
Well, she was asked, which I think has already been talked about earlier, she was asked to go on the Sunday talk shows by the White House. And the talking points were given to her by the intelligence community. Let me just be clear. The information that was given by the intelligence community about the protests and the video, that was wrong. And we have to get to the bottom of why the intelligence community got that so wrong, because frankly, the evidence from the beginning appears to be with a key component being that individuals with ties to Al-Qaeda were involved in the attack. What was omitted, obviously, from the unclassified talking points, but was, already been reported has been in the classified. So I think that where we are with this is that there is an intelligence failure, but
let me just stop you on that point, because we already know now that James Clapper, the Director of National Intelligence, his office after the fact, after the lawmakers on Capitol Hill pressed and pressed and pressed, he went up to Capitol Hill, according to the senators who received the briefing and the congressman, and said, I don't know who changed the talking points to take out al-Qaeda. That's what Peter King told us when he came on our show, among others, and Mike Rogers attested to that. And then a couple days later, his office came out and said, it was us. We were the ones who changed the talking points to take out al-Qaeda. And then Mike Rogers, who's the chairman on the House side, said, Mr. Clapper, could you come back here and explain to us, if that's the case, why you just told us it wasn't you and you had no idea who did it? So that's why I ask you if there's a name. We know it was the intel community that changed it. Did she give you a name of who briefed her?
No, we have not been getting a name. But I would say, Megyn, that I still think that there needs to be more sufficient answers as to what agency changed the talking points and who did that. And those are some of the questions we have answers, we expect answers to, and also why they did that. It's absurd to me to think that you would omit the reference of al-Qaeda. What, so we didn't want to tip al-Qaeda off? And particularly since it's very important that the American people not be left a misleading impression, which is what happened here. And not only did it happen, if the intelligence community knew by the 22nd that this was wrong, how come we weren't told sooner that it was wrong, and why didn't Ambassador Rice come forward and say what she said was wrong sooner?
Senator Ayotte, can I ask you, because the Washington Post piled on to some allegations we had heard from some lawmakers, in particular a couple of members of the Congressional Black Caucus earlier in the week, suggesting that the attacks on Ms. Rice are based on her gender and her race, and that's what's really driving your objections to her, among others, and they don't focus so much on you, a woman, but they focus on the gender of Senator McCain and the race of those who are taking issue with Ms. Rice. I'd like to get your thoughts on it.
I noticed that I got missed out of that, but I think that it's absolutely false. This is very important, that if someone is going to, number one, serves now currently in an incredibly important position as ambassador to the United Nations, or be nominated to be the top diplomat in service to our country as a Secretary of State, that we get answers to this question. I mean, the fact that she would go on each of these shows, what did she rely on, what did she do for her homework, and why didn't she ask questions about why is this key piece of information being admitted, and really question that rather than leave a misleading impression to the American people, particularly with her statement that al-Qaeda was decimated. So I think these are incredibly important questions about anyone that would serve in that position, and those claims are completely baseless.
Yeah, need a quick answer, but do you believe now that she is confirmable as Secretary of State?
I think that there are still incredibly serious questions that need to be answered about the entire circumstances surrounding Benghazi. Let's not forget, Megyn, before the attacks on the consulate, why it wasn't reinforced. In addition,
but that's not Susan Rice.
I agree, but I think that we should get to the bottom of it. We're going to confirm a new Secretary of State. We should know everything about what happened and went wrong there, because whoever's asked to serve in that position is going to have to make sure that in that capacity it doesn't happen again. But with respect to Susan Rice, I think there are still several important questions, including about the talking points, including about the questions that I've raised about why she didn't come out correct this sooner, and why would you leave a misleading impression, you know, if the information you had reviewed was different, and why wouldn't you question why are the unclassified talking points different, and of course her statement that al-Qaeda was decimated. These are incredibly important questions that I think anyone would ask with regard before they would consider confirming her for that position.
Senator, thanks so much.
Thank you.